I'm ready. Bring it.
I'm already ready already.
I can't even do one. That's like too much better than anything I could come up with.
I already nailed it, and we haven't even started. Well, we have started, but so welcome back to episode 54. I'm 54. Still counting. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, I like counting. I think it's good. I like having a number that goes up. It shows forward progress.
Yeah.
We've done this more times than before.
We teased last episode that we were going to talk about Twin Peaks this week.
Oh, are we going to do that?
Nope.
Oh, dang it. I got really excited for about 30 seconds.
We don't have time looking at the things we have to talk about this week because I'm going to make good on another promise, and it's going to take some time. Yep. So
I like that.
Yeah. So we're gonna make good on some promises, and other promises like Twin Peaks are becoming a bonus episode. And you heard it here first. There's a pretty special episode coming next week, as well as the Twin Peaks bonus. So, guys, the next two, not 55 and 56, but 55 and bonus are gonna be Amazeballs.
You heard it here first. Amazeballs.
So if you did not listen to 54, you missed out.
That's right.
Because you wouldn't know.
All the secret information, it's impossible to go back and get it from 54 now. It's locked away there forever.
Yep. I mean, who are we kidding? We're going to definitely tweet and get the hype going.
Yeah, we are. That's true. But anywho.
How you been, buddy?
I am doing okay. I had a longer day at work than I expected today due to some out of control, let's say, I'll call it office politics. And yeah, that's not great. There are multiple ways to approach things in engineering sometimes, and it doesn't feel good when people say that your solution is bad and you should use theirs.
Huh.
So, it's a whole thing. I don't want to go into it on this podcast. It's not worth it. No one cares, but suffice to say, I had a late day. And then I come home to find a Homeowner's Minute Segway sitting right in front of me. Sure, Andrew, there's a lot of ice in my freezer, you know?
Oh, no.
It's not supposed to be there, dude. It's not supposed to be there. You know, the whole back of the freezer where the vent is all covered, and it's making a real loud noise, like the motor on the fan is whirring real hard.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's happening. Yep. Don't like it.
No.
I have a deep suspicion I know what's going on, but I don't really have a way to fix it at the moment, so we'll see, I guess.
Oh, no. I know how freezers and fridges work.
Yes, I understand the mechanics of there's an evaporator and a condenser and all that part, right?
I still don't know how to fix your problem.
Yeah, that's the issue, right? So why is the condenser and the evaporator fan running all the time? Like, that's the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it shouldn't be running all the time. And then also, like, why is there all this ice buildup, right?
Yeah.
Is something frozen? Is like a drain blocked so it's running more than it should? Is the temperature sensor broken so it thinks it's not as cold as it needs to be,
or
so it's always on? Or
pinhole leak in your gasket somewhere so it's running all the time when it doesn't need to be?
Yeah, yeah, who knows, right? So there's a lot of things that it could be. I can diagnose some of these things. The refrigerator has a maintenance mode, and I went through that real quick. But it didn't show any immediate problems with anything.
Uh-huh.
So probably going to have to resort to a professional here if we don't figure it out in the next day or so.
Yep. It's better to save the appliance than save your ego, I guess.
It turns out that replacing that motor, even if the motor burns out, is going to be cheaper than getting a new refrigerator no matter what.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh,
so,
man. Sorry about that, bud.
No, it's not. Obviously, it is not your fault. But that is my... I had an exciting day today.
I'm going to bring you back up, man. I had a good homeowner's experience this week.
Oh, I love that.
I decided to do some of my own electrical work.
Ooh, always potentially dicey work there sometimes.
No, it's not as... every time I've done plumbing, something goes completely wrong.
Plumbing is tough.
Yeah. And there's really no way to foresee what exactly the problem's going to be until you put it all back together.
Mm-hmm.
Electrical is pretty straightforward, as long as you make sure that you do everything up to the code.
And you sure as heck don't touch that ground wire.
You can touch a ground. That's okay.
Well, depends what else you're touching at the time.
Sure. Also turn the power off.
Yes, definitely do that.
I added an outlet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I have, we're redoing a room in the house, and I thought, this hallway on the other side of this room has no outlet. So we punched a hole in the wall, and we put a new outlet there and wired it all up, which actually went pretty well. It took like 2 hours, and I did it all, myself, and got it all hooked up, turned the power back on, and everything was peach keen, man. It works.
Nice.
It's got like a built-in night light in it, so it lights up the hallway at night and all sorts of stuff like that.
Was there a nearby cables that you could tag onto?
Yeah, I moved from an outlet in one room and then popped through the wall in the other room about 2 feet over.
Okay, so there was an outlet nearby that you could sort of tag the cables on.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the trick, right?
Sure.
If it's just like the middle of the wall and there's nothing nearby, what do you do? I am unqualified to answer that question.
Yeah, then you got to like find power and a light and drag it down, and
that seems like work.
Yeah, it's not worth it. But our electrical panel's a little bit old.
Mm-hmm. I also have an old electrical panel.
Yeah, do you have like the push button type?
Oh, no, it's they're breakers, but they're like old, like slide up and down breakers.
Ours are pop in and outs.
Ooh, those are older, I think.
Yeah, and this one I found later when we tried to turn on the lights in the front of the house that some of them did not pop back in despite me turning the power back on. So we found the one that was the problem, and then it was continuing to be a problem, so I hit it with a hammer, and now all the power works again.
I mean, hey, solve problems, man. Look at this. Wow. Ingenuity, American spirit right here. This guy is, the epitome of an entrepreneur. He's hit stuff with a hammer until it works, man. That's, I had some friends in college, shout out to them if they are listening, who told me that the purpose of becoming a mechanical engineer in college is that when you graduate, they give you a really big wrench to hit things with. And why you went to college for the degree instead of just buying a wrench is you can get bigger wrenches that way.
And you also know which part to hit.
Exactly. And they say that the key is knowing which part to hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which you're not going to break by hitting it.
Right. Exactly. Or like you're going to break it in the right way.
Sure. I believe it.
Fail upwards.
Oh, man. What's the big news this week, man? It's been pretty busy over here with housework, so I don't know. And Mother's Day was busy, too, so I've been kind of out of the loop in the news section.
There was, this broke kind of late last week in the video games space. A little bit of a business style kind of thing here. The makers of the recent game Hitman, IO Interactive. I don't know if you played that or own any of that stuff.
They also made a couple other things, IO Interactive.
They've made all of the Hitman games.
Yes.
And then I don't know what else. Probably some other stuff in there too. Hitman has been a long-running franchise. And this most recent version was kind of a trial of an episodic game, which I think actually worked out like really, really well. Mm-hmm. Especially for a kind of game like this where you're meant to play the levels over and over because there's so many different ways and different things you can do in them. It's actually a really fun thing to do episodically.
Sure.
As opposed to like a lot of those story-driven episodic things where you play it through once, you make your choices, and then you're like, okay, now I got to wait, 3 months or whatever to see the next part of the story.
Oh, like the Back to the Future series.
Right, or like, those Walking Dead ones.
The Telltale games.
Yes, the Telltale games, exactly. These kind of like story-based episode things. There's a Batman one now, and a Guardians of the Galaxy one, I guess, coming soon.
Sweet.
Anywho, so I thought this sort of episodic format worked really well for Hitman specifically because you had time to play that level a bunch of times and get really good at it and learn all the fun, interesting things to do in it, all the crazy ways to drop a chandelier on their head or shoot them from across the crowded ballroom, or, you know, find a way to set off all the explosions so during the fireworks so that it sounds like, you know, the fireworks when they die and all that kind of fun stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, and so they teach you, you know, these levels come out, you know, every, I don't know exactly how often they came out, but last year was the year of that game, 2016, and I guess the sales of that game didn't go so well.
You mean we didn't hype it enough?
Well, I played it on the recommendation of some websites that I read, but I don't know, I guess, that many other people did.
We tried to tell the people.
We did. We talked about it on here for sure. And Square Enix is selling IO Interactive.
Squeenix?
The makers of Hitman.
Square Enix just said they had a huge year.
And right, isn't that interesting? Why would they choose to sell this studio? Unless that means that their game maybe didn't do so hot in the sales charts. So they said that they are looking to sell them to, you know, interested parties. There aren't a ton of people. I guess IO Interactive has something like 170-ish employees. So there aren't a lot of companies out there in the world that are looking to buy a studio of that size.
Yeah, that's right in the wrong range.
Right, exactly. You're a little bit too big to do, you know, like smaller type indie or like more smaller focused titles. And you're a little too small if you want to go to like full on Call of Duty style, like multiple millions of dollars, or you know, many millions of dollars development. So it's a tough game. It's a tough thing. You know, this studio has done Hitman, you know, for a long time, and it's not clear if that studio owns the Hitman IP or not. And since Hitman, you know, the one that came out last year was so well liked, people were really looking forward, at least I was, to seeing what they were going to do for, you know, season 2 of the content there for that. But now maybe we will never know. That's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, so they haven't said anything other than the fact that they're wanting to remove this studio from their lineup. They haven't said about season 2, nothing?
Yeah, you got to assume if they're starting to sell the studio immediately is going into panic mode of like, cancel everything. We need to figure out ways to keep our studio solvent and stuff, you know, because paying 170 people with no money coming in is tough, obviously.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know, you know, it's unlikely that they have a ton of cash on hand because, like, who has millions and millions of dollars sitting in the bank all the time? So, you know, I'm not sure what the plan is for the studio at this point. Obviously, they haven't said anything because all that stuff is going to happen, you know, behind closed doors with business folks and meetings. But this was announced, I think, like Thursday or Wednesday of last week.
And they announced it and they didn't say that they had a buyer already. So no EA, no Vivendi, nobody's stepping forward already and saying they want it.
It sounded like there was like, oh, there are some interested parties, but like not, you know, this is happening and here's what it is. So
yeah,
you know,
that
maybe,
being public is kind
of
worrisome in a way because usually that's kind of shopped around CEO to CEO, right?
Well, I assume that it had to come out as part of Square Enix's financial stuff that came out not that long ago. Yeah, since they were saying they're taking a big write down on all this, you know, they're losing the cost of the sale of the studio, right? They're taking the write down on it this quarter, and then they get the proceeds from whatever sale comes later. But so it came out as part of the financials there. So I think they were obligated to disclose that they were selling it. But, you know, it's still a bad situation for them because you don't know how much time or how much foreknowledge was given to them, right? It's like your boss coming to say to you, oh, by the way, you're fired today. Like,
oh, man.
Oh, what? Like,
it's been a while since a studio of that size has been like a shakeup. Like, I think the last thing that I remember being of this size is either Bungie or THX going, you know, especially THX going under.
THQ, you mean?
THQ. Yeah. Although THX is now owned by a video game company in a way.
Ooh. Is?
Razer bought THX.
Huh, I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's a weird segue. Anyway, yeah, THQ is what I meant, and that was a huge...
Yeah, they were bigger than this. that company was. But yeah, like Bungie would have been of this size, but they kind of went into their own kind of thing. They're sort of doing themselves now.
Yeah, that kind of shook out differently with 2 or 3 different studios, and the Call of Duty studios as well. They all shook out differently than I think this is probably headed towards the THQ direction of just like, well, who wants the Hitman IP?
Well, that's the other thing is we don't know who owns it because it was not disclosed as part of this, and it's not exactly clear. Like, does IO own the Hitman IP, or does Square Enix own it? If Square Enix owns it and they're selling IO, like what incentive is there for you to buy? They're just a group of game developers, right? They're just people at that point. You're buying, essentially talent
and hardware.
And hardware, right? But like not even that much hardware. And hardware you could probably get yourself. So, it's the talent and the people and the resources that you'd be hiring there.
That's a little bit of sad news.
Which is kind of a bummer, yeah. So, hopefully those folks land on their feet and hopefully, best case scenario, someone like, EA or 2K or, I don't know, Activision, someone comes in and says, hey, these guys seem pretty good and that Hitman game was rad. Let's make more of that. Oh. That would be the dream, but who knows?
Our thoughts are with you, IO.
Yeah, that Hitman game was really good. I really do want to encourage people, even though the episodic content stuff is a turnoff for some people. All the episodes are out there now. You can just go buy it, buy all of them, play them. It's a wonderful, wonderful game. Really cool. So check that out.
I read a news story this week, actually, about something a little bit different.
Okay. PC
Gamer put out an article about something that I don't really do anymore that maybe you know about that I didn't know about, since you usually know these things. I don't Reddit much anymore. I think I haven't logged into my Reddit account since we were trying to get BlizzCon tickets like 3 years ago through Reddit. So this was news to me, but they put out an article about this thing called r/patientgamers. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't.
So it's a Reddit community, which is basically everything we've ever talked about on this podcast. They wait for games to kind of like die down. So these guys aren't out there, or girls, I should say, but these people are not out there on r/Skyrim the week Skyrim comes out, talking about all the hype of Skyrim and watching the videos and, talking about the ways the game is broke and, all this stuff. They, as a community, say they ban discussion on games in their forum until 6 months after release.
Interesting.
So you get a full review of a game after it's been patched and poked and prodded and fixed, and the hype dies down to see if it's actually a good game. So we've always talked about on here, like, don't buy games that have DLC until the Game of the Year edition comes out.
Right. Wait. Yeah, for sure.
Affordability, all that sort of stuff. So it was pretty cool that I didn't know this group existed, and they're out there talking about, their affordability, problems, and they kind of came up with like a list of essential games. So like if you go back and you own a Wii U, well, here are all the cheap games or essential system games that you need to pick up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool little thing. Kind of got me back into Reddit, like, trolling their forum and seeing what they were talking about. And
that's cool, man.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. And it's something I never thought, well, we did this podcast, and now, yeah, of course there are people that want the same thing. We, like to be true gamers in a sense of playing games to play the games, not to play the hype.
Yeah, the idea is, it's a hobby, right? You should be playing for the love of the hobby, not necessarily to be as part of the zeitgeist. And I feel like a lot of people sometimes get too caught up in being current and up on the cool new thing, whatever it is.
Well, I had one person, since we did talk about Civ 6 when it came out and you described a ton of it.
Yeah.
I had a weird experience where we were really trying to say, like, Civ games are awesome. And we went through so much of Civ that this person texted me and said, "Thank you for doing the Civ section, even though, during all the hype, I was going to buy it." And then I listened to you guys and I was like, that game doesn't interest me at all.
Well, I mean, it's important to have people, know what they like, right? And I think you and I both know that we like Civ games. It's going to be...
Sure, but we saved somebody $60 on hype that they then spent, buying 3 or 4 more games that were on sale on Steam later that year.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's really cool. I will have to go check that place out because that's definitely something that you and I both kind of, I don't know, aspire to is the right word, but we kind of live that philosophy a little bit.
Well, thanks to my backlog in Steam, I definitely forced myself to live that philosophy. Like both of us have been talking about Total Warhammer. Well, I was in on the hype on that in terms of watching it on Twitch, but I knew starting that game would be a mistake. They're going to add DLC to it, and there's going to be a Game of the Year edition, and that Game of the Year edition will eventually be less than $20 at some point, and that's when you get the most for your dollar, right?
Yeah. The problem with that is that at least in terms of those games made by those guys, they don't do the Game of the Year edition stuff very frequently. So you might be waiting a couple more years at this point for that. Just, BT dubs.
I might be picking the wrong example, but
you're picking a bad example, but your idea is in general correct. For, like the latest Batman game, right? That would be a perfect example.
Yeah, you were going straight into my example right there. I was like, okay, I know they did it for that latest Batman game.
Yeah, and they have a pattern, right? This is the third Batman game, right? They released, Arkham Asylum, and then they did Arkham City, and then they did Arkham Knight. And by, the third time after you've seen it twice before, you know what's going to happen here. They're going to release it. They're going to release a bunch of costumes and little add-on packs playing as other characters or whatever, a bunch of stuff that really, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter, and you probably don't need to play, unless you just really want to play as Robin and fight a bunch of guys for whatever reason. And nothing wrong with Robin, just to be clear. I know we have friends of the show who enjoy that character.
Robin or Nightwing?
Probably both are in the game, actually. So I know specifically Nightwing is in the game because I played it. And I think Robin was too, but I think Robin's dumb, so I didn't play as him.
Fighting words.
It's the it's not the cool Robins, right? It's one of the lame ones. Anywho, but so they're going to release all that DLC down the line from when the game comes out. So the review scores or whatever aren't going to tell you anything about any of that DLC and the quality of it. So if you buy that Game of the Year edition in a year that includes all that stuff, well, is any of it good? Who knows? You have to go search for DLC reviews or whatever that no one does.
Right.
And YouTube channels and stuff where people are potentially paid to say good things about things. So I don't know how trustworthy that stuff is. And so if you wait 2 years and then the Game of the Year edition is $25, well, now it's cheaper than the price of the base game, and you can't complain that much if you get all that DLC for free, right? Just don't play it if it's bad.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the other things they mentioned on there is hardware improvement, right? So say you get Mass Effect 3 right when it comes out or whatever on PC. Well, 5 years later, your computer, your box isn't going to be chugging trying to play that game. A card 5 years later is going to be able to play that game like butter most of the time.
The problem is some of those games don't play well to start out with, and it's not a hardware issue.
I have a good example of that.
Oh yeah?
Skyrim.
You can make Skyrim play really well.
Oh, really? Yeah, you can. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, turn those graphics settings down, my dude.
No, you got to turn them all the way up and force...
No, that's not how you get it to play well.
Oh, no. My card burns through the game too fast, and I was having mucho problems until I was able to go into some settings and force a lock to 60 frames per second. I had to force...
You turned on VSync?
Nope. VSync doesn't stop it from flying up to 144. Setting my refresh rate down to 60 hertz didn't stop the game from flying up to 144. It was a nightmare. I had to go into a driver and put in an FPS lock, and it was...
what's the problem with it rendering more? Is that...
Oh, you didn't know this about Skyrim? Okay, so
I never played it because I don't like those games. Right? We had this discussion.
Except for Witcher 3 for some reason.
No, The Witcher 3 is nothing like Skyrim.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second because I have a funny story for you. Skyrim has a graphics engine problem with their physics engine. If the game runs higher than 60 frames per second, everything in the physics engine freaks out. So you can like walk into a room, accidentally hit a bowl with your paper doll, and the bowl goes flying across the room, bounces off the wall, bounces back, and kills your character.
Okay. It's funny, but games like Dark Souls have that same problem. If you try to do graphical mods that give them, higher frame rates and stuff than they're built for, like all of a sudden you're swinging your sword and it degrades at double or triple the amount of speed because it's all based on like frames or whatever. And while your sword is hitting someone for however many frames, it like counts, but double the frame rate. Well, you just make your swords break twice as fast.
Well, but 60 frames.
But it all ran on 30 on consoles, so it was no problem there. And now you turn it up to 60 on the PC, and all of a sudden everything breaks.
Yeah, well, 61 and everything broke. You'd have like glitching. Like if it was at 80 frames, the mammoths in the game would be perpendicular to how they were supposed to be standing on the ground and sort of like floating along. And you'd hear water running in the middle of the like the mountain. You'd hear like. You're like, where's this water coming from? I don't understand what's happening around me.
That's cool. Yeah, there was an issue I remember with one of the older Dark Souls games when you would turn on the 60 FPS mod. It was fine in a lot of places, except for I talked about the weapon stuff, except for if you were on a ladder. If you were on a ladder and you slid down the ladder, there's a chance you would be going so fast you would fall through the world at the bottom. There was a bunch of places being like, if you ever get to these areas, just turn it off while you take the ladders and then turn it back on.
We do a lot of talk about being PC, like pro PC, because you get so much more benefit out of it. But sometimes
those benefits are hilarious.
Yeah, there are problems you do avoid when you play on a gated system like a console.
Yep, and like in a lot of those cases, like it's not a problem; it's just funny. Like. Yeah, the game isn't like broken. It's just acting real weird, like falling through the world. Like you can't be mad at that. You're just like, oh well, this is a stupid way to die. Like you slid down the stairs so hard you hit your head on the ground and fell through.
Yeah, except that you'd have like in Skyrim, you'd try to shoot an arrow at something and it would glitch through them, right? Like so the enemy's coming at you like there's some sort of ethereal monster. Running through your arrow bolts.
Hey man, ethereal's a spell in that game, right? Maybe they learned it,
Yeah.
Mammoth, those bears were practicing magic while you weren't looking.
Oh my god. Are you ready for me to make good on a promise?
I love promises.
I'm finished Skyrim, which is why I'm talking about it.
Whoa.
I know.
We got to the end. So what was the game clock when you were done?
I completed the 2 main quest lines at 80 hours.
80 hours. All right. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's like, that's a lot of hours, but it's not like an unconscionable amount of hours like certain other people that I know that have played that game.
Oh, well, I could see playing this game literally for months at a time because I didn't even hit that high of a level. Like my archery and my light armor capped out, and my sneak, I think I had 3 of my abilities cap out at the 100 skill cap, and I don't think I played any. Well, I don't think I have all the DLC for that game. But anyway, I finished the 2 main quest lines at level 40 or whatever, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Kind of in a way, I could see playing all the side quests for a long time if I didn't have a 300 game backlog. This is I see what you're.
But do you really feel pressure from that backlog to like play more of those games? I don't know how you. Do you actually feel like that's a problem?
Yeah, we could take a segue here for a minute and talk about that.
I was just asking if like that pressure is what's motivating you to finish games as opposed to just enjoy your time with them.
Interesting. Certain games, yes. So I felt pressure thinking that I could spend, like I didn't level up my smithing at all. I didn't level up my alchemy very much. I didn't level, I could have sat there doing a lot more.
Like all the crafting stuff.
Right. Like there's still 20 quests in my log that I didn't finish, and all the crafting I didn't do. And, I don't have the dragon bone bow or anything else like that. I kind of skirted to the end at a certain point. I got to a certain point where I said, if I spend an hour right now, I know that I'm going to finish this game and that I'll be able to move on to something else because I'll have finished it. And in a way, because if I go do this other side quest,
see those end credits, man.
It didn't roll any credits. You just sort of end.
What?
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, because you can do more stuff.
Oh, I see.
Right? Like there's 2 main quest lines. So let's say you finish the dragon quest line before you finish the war between the Nords and the Imperials quests.
Mm-hmm. And then you could just keep going.
You keep going, and then once you finish the other main quest, you keep going on all your side quests and stuff like that. So,
gotcha.
And the story neither of the main stories ends in a way that like inexorably changes the landscape of the game.
Gotcha. It's just like some stuff is different, but not so much that we can't just let you keep wandering around.
Right. Yeah, you could finish the 2 main quests and play the game, in theory, infinitely.
Right.
So at a certain point, I realized that that's the direction I'm heading, right? I've got 1 main quest done, and the other one is an hour from being complete. And literally, I walk into a zone, and I'm like trying to look for the Elder Scroll, and I walk into a new zone, and it's this zone called the... what's it called? Blackreach. Blackreach is what it's called. So it's you're like, oh, I'm gonna go into this tower, right? And I'm gonna put my little block in the thing and solve a puzzle, and then go down into a hole. And then there's Elder Scroll's gonna be there. Oh no, I'm actually in a gigantic underground chamber the size of one of the like cities in the game, or a full quadrant in the game, that has 15, 20 new dungeons in it that I could spend more hours in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're letting you know there's more here.
Right. So it's kind of like, okay, well, do I just beeline it here and keep going for the end of the game, or get distracted again and keep collecting metal and running back to town and dropping it in a box so that eventually I can level up smithing. And I just got to the point that it was either going to go on forever with the openness, or I start charging into another game at some point. So
the command decision was made.
Command decision, yeah. I typed into the console command /endgame. No, I didn't do that.
Something else you don't get with console games, you get these little handy console where you get to type stuff in, like no clip, and then you walk through walls.
Oh man, I can't tell you.
It's just Doom.
There's a funny story to tell you. Okay, so I thought I was going to be uber clever and end the game easily. There's this quest for a Daedra. First of all, hold on. The Daedra. Do you know what I'm talking about when I talk about the Daedra?
Yeah, aren't they those like magical like demon princes or whatever?
Yeah, so there's these demon princes in the world of the Elder Scrolls
3
games,
and some of 4.
That are kind of like evil monster princes from a dark realm or something. They're
like demon.
They're demon kind, and they've existed and they still exist, and their missions are always evil. So like, bring me like a follower so that I can slaughter them on my altar, and then I'll give you this amazing weapon.
Sweet, do it.
Well, like, where's the bonus for not doing the bad thing? I've heard one of the complaints of this game
is upstanding morality.
Well, yeah. So
that's the bonus.
Yeah. In Knights of the Old Republic, if you made a good choice, you at least got light side points, right? And those eventually unlocked things on the light side of the spectrum.
Right.
I think this is kind of more open world, and so you're kind of left with the binary, and the evil binary gives you a good thing, and the bad binary, or the good binary, gives you nothing. And there's no like good princes in the game to give you other options where you can keep saying no to the Daedra and then go do missions for the good people or whatever. You just kind of
might say that the thing you are rewarded with is a challenging game experience.
I understand, and I don't think that that's a negative for me. It just shows you the age of the game where they didn't try, or maybe that's just their style, of not trying to balance your choices. You either RP into your good character and you don't do the missions for the Daedra, or you can get some cool thing, and that kind of it's an existential thing in a way, right?
Right.
They leave you an existential choice, not a game choice, like in Knights of the Old Republic, where you're like, oh, I'm making a character choice in this game, and I get light side points, and I feel good about that because I'm still advancing my character.
Yeah, it's a tack that other games take too. Torment, Tides of Numenera has a lot of that, where there's like, you can make a choice that is, a person would say is morally evil. But the game doesn't punish you for making that choice. It just says, oh, okay, you felt like doing that. That's weird. And then, your followers die or whatever. And it's like, well, this is what you chose, dude. So it doesn't judge you for that. It doesn't it's not game over because you chose to sacrifice them. That's what you chose to do.
Yeah.
There might be other ways you could choose to do that, but that was the one you did.
Right. It was funny. I was saying earlier about The Witcher, and you just mentioned it again. US Gamer was responding to, I don't know if you saw, Game Informer just did 100 best RPGs of all time list.
There have been a lot of those lists floating around. I know IGN posted one recently too.
Yeah, look, lists are kind of silly. We've done a couple.
Yeah,
I don't know that we would call them lists as much as like our
list.
Yeah, we were list adjacent. These are our
list
tops,
adjacent,
but we're not making a compendium. We were just saying what we liked, right?
100 is a big list.
It's silly too because they said Skyrim was their number one RPG of all time.
And they're wrong objectively.
They are wrong objectively, and US Gamer came at them hard, and they were like, "You're wrong objectively."
Yeah. I saw that list. I don't remember what else was on it, but there were a lot of bad decisions on that Game Informer list. Yeah. The IGN list I saw was like more in line with what I would agree, and it seemed like Game Informer just sort of presented this list and said, "Here's what we say." And IGN actually had here's our criteria for ranking.
Right.
And then we ranked it this way. The way you have to do to create a list of 100 things, because otherwise it's freaking impossible.
Well, it's pretty easy if you just sort of pull up the meta critic scores, and then you see that Skyrim is the best.
Rank them top to bottom.
Yeah, right. So it's
if they were doing that, they got it wrong, because Skyrim wouldn't be the highest one. The highest one would be Planescape Torment, because that game is amazing.
Or Persona 4 Golden.
Yeah, something like that,
Yeah, but I think US Gamers was mentioning the binary choices when it comes to Daedra, or the bad combat, and they kind of...
God, the combat is so bad. And that's the thing that I can't get over in those games is the combat in that game is walking backwards and spamming your attack button, whether it's sword or magic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little more nuance with arrows and range spells, but it's not a lot more nuanced.
Well, it's more nuanced if your game's not glitching out because it's above 60.
I guess I didn't account for the fact that the mammoths learned ethereal spells and are horizontal two-plane beings.
Oh man. Well,
that game sounds more fun now.
Their takeaway from that was if you really like Skyrim, go play The Witcher.
I absolutely agree with that. If you really like Skyrim, you should play The Witcher 3, because that game is a giant open world Skyrim with a better story, actual characters instead of just this blank dude.
See?
And stuff.
See, I need to get past this game. I really enjoyed my experience, but I have other stuff I need to play, right?
That's true. There is other stuff.
So yeah, to answer one of your questions from earlier, I guess I kind of do feel pressure based on the backlog and the availability of other games, especially now that this game's so old, and I have other games that are so old that they're either cheap or they've been sitting in my backlog that I could play and get a different experience. 80 hours is a long time to, especially not have the feeling of, I feel completed, right? I went to the end where we can say spoilers for this game, right?
This game is 7 years old or something, dude. We can spoil it. That's fine.
I did the whole thing with Alduin. I've talked to Parth, and I've done the story.
You did the stuff.
I've seen everything there is to see of the main line, and even though the story wasn't maybe the greatest story of all time, I feel accomplished enough to walk away from it in a way and like realize the things that I didn't like as much. Like, one thing I walk away from this thinking was, man, there are good RPGs out there that give you a different experience when it comes to interactions socially. That would be my biggest detractor. Like, if you're in a conversation with someone in Skyrim, you have to assume they're telling you the truth because there's no way to call them out or deal with the fact that they're lying to you. Even though you know it's likely that a character's lying to you, you're like, okay, well, this guy just lied to me.
But the game doesn't present you any options for dealing with it other than stabbing them and probably being killed by their 800 guards.
Right.
Or just like ignoring them and then continuing on and then like, oh, big twist, he was lying.
Right.
Like, I knew it.
So you either cancel your interaction with them and then you don't move on in the quest line, you ignore them, or your choice is to move on in the quest line and walk into the ambush so that you can trigger the quest line and then go back and say, you betrayed me. It's like, that's kind of it's pretty silly. And that kind of got to me at a certain point, you know?
Mm-hmm. The video gaminess of it at some level.
Well, yeah, just the lack of option giving. There was maybe one quest where you got to choose who was lying to you because both sides were lying to you, and you just picked a side. And once you picked a side, one side killed the other, and that was the end of it.
It's a thing where, like, you know, the game allows you so many interactions,
right,
and so many different ways, and then to limit you specifically in that way feels weird sometimes.
Oh, I never finished my console command story.
Oh, yeah.
So, without cheating in the game with console commands, I tried to cheat in the game to get to the end at a lower level, much easier. So in the game, there's a Daedra quest that I was working on, and you get a follower from the Daedra. That's this dog named Barbas, and the dog Barbas is invincible unless you complete the quest.
Right. So you have a pet dog.
So I have an invincible pet dog tanking for me while I shoot arrows at everything for the last hour of the game.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I thought I was going to be able to take him to the end, except that there's this little basically like teleport to the end of the game where you leave all your followers behind.
Lame.
So I'm kind of under-leveled a little bit, so because I had this invincible dog carrying me.
Would you say that the struggle was real?
Yeah. Unfortunately, Barbas is a little bit over-aggressive, and if there's been an enemy that's attacked you, even if the enemy then goes neutral and you can talk to them again, he continues to attack them and then kills them. So
bad dog. No biscuit.
He accidentally killed a dragon.
Whoops.
That I needed to talk to that had been attacked.
Oops.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of console command revivement rather than saving up, like loading an old save and then trying to figure out how to get him to not aggro onto the dragon after killing it.
Well, you know, hey, that's fine. It's not cheating. It's in there for a reason.
Hey, you know what? And in the end, I did it myself. Barbas didn't help me.
There you go. Well, Andrew, I think a good segue from that is your accomplishment into I had an accomplishment this week. I also completed a pretty long game.
Persona?
I got to the ending in Persona, yeah.
So what are they called? Confidants?
Yeah, so the previous Persona game called them social links. And this game, because it's all about thieves and stealing and stuff, call them confidants for whatever reason.
So you got all your confidants?
I did. I was following a guide on the internet. I was able to max out all of my confidants. So I saw as much of the story, because I knew I wasn't going to play this again, right? Like that's the trick. There is one thing I want to start a new game plus for just to see, but I don't have the time to put. I believe the clock read over 100 hours
when I
got to the end. There were some long play sessions the past weekend, so not like, tens of hours, but quite a bit of time.
Almost tens of hours.
Not maybe all tens, but close enough as it's a problem. But I did get to the end. And I had the opposite experience of being underleveled because I stumbled upon something that is apparent. I don't know if it's a bug, but it's definitely something strange.
Okay.
There's this kind of like So some of the dungeons in that game are randomly generated. Most of the big important ones are laid out in like a specific way, which is new for the series. Previously, they were all randomly generated, but there is still a randomly generated portion of this game. And when you're in there, there's an enemy that kind of keeps you from staying on the same level for too long, going around looking for stuff.
Huh.
So if you try to grind for too long in one place, the enemy will come get you.
That reminds me of like the spider in Final Fantasy VIII. If you moved too slowly, it kept attacking you on the escape level.
Right. And I guess specifically the way this one works is if you stand still, like you go AFK in a room or something, he shows up. Or like you standing there waiting for things to respawn or whatever. But apparently, if you fight him during certain seasons of the year, there's like the seasons affect what happens to the monsters in that game. If it's a heat wave, then there's a chance the monsters will spawn and be on fire.
What?
If it's rainy, there's a chance they will spawn like better loot because the rain makes them have items that are rare. I don't know. But if you go during like the flu season, there's a chance that they will spawn with this like flu debuff.
The monsters can get the flu?
The monsters can get the flu.
Can you get the flu?
Yes.
Oh.
But not because of that, right? The monsters can give you the flu with their spells. But the like idea is that the things that affect the general population affect this area, right? That's kind of how the way it works.
Okay.
And so since it's supposed to be like all this cognitive meta, world inside people's heads, oh, well, if it's the flu season, sometimes the monsters in people's minds will have the flu. Well, it turns out that this big mega like bad monster can also get the flu. The flu, if you have it, your character can't attack and stands there. And if you do nothing and don't cure it, it dies in 3 turns.
So you just let it die?
Yep.
Again and again?
I only did it once because after I saw what happened for killing it, I didn't feel like I needed to do this again. I got 75,000 experience.
What?
In a game where like a battle is like 1,000. So I think my characters went up like 6 levels in that one fight, and I decided, I think I'm good. I'm just gonna go. I don't need to do this anymore. I'm good. I got other stuff here. So I did that a while, like in the I think it was like the November time frame that I was in there, and it happened to me. Wow. And then I was like, well, the rest of this is not so tough now, all of a sudden, that I have 6 levels more than I did.
So that game doesn't rubber band, right?
No, it doesn't. You can overpower that game a lot if you want. And in fact, the New Game Plus mode is meant to be done that way because you carry over your level and your gold and some of the items and stuff into the New Game Plus. And so, like, essentially you can just say, like, okay, all the stuff that we did in the first game, I can power through, like, a lot of the stuff that you don't, like all your social statistics for like how things that like gate you from doing stuff early in the game, you start with whatever social statistics you ended the last game with. So you could just say like, oh, I can just start all this stuff immediately and just like blaze through in ways that you wouldn't be able to do in the early game.
What's the draw of doing New Game Plus then? If you're over leveled and you're accomplishing things that should take you 100 hours in the game, what's the draw? I don't see the
goal would be then to see the stuff that you didn't see, right? So like, early in the game, there might be an event that one of your confidants says, hey, I want to go out for pizza. Do you want to come with me? And like, you could be like, well, yes, and then go see a thing with them. Or, if you're trying to min-max it, right, you might go, well, okay, I can't go out with this person because I need to get points with this other person because they're the one that's available today. And like, it's a whole like simulation aspect of it, right? Certain people are only available on certain days and everyone needs certain statistics in order to, advance and all this stuff. So, there's events and stuff that happen besides that maybe you would want to see, or maybe you didn't complete all the events with one person in the first playthrough, and so you want to see their storyline, right?
Got it.
And you can start that stuff earlier in some cases because you're not gated by needing to spend your time studying or, going to the doctor's office or whatever to raise your various statistics.
Got it. Now, can you complete in your first playthrough everything, like everybody's storyline, or is there just not enough time?
It is possible, but you definitely would not just like happen upon it unless you were like seriously min-maxing and planning ahead, right?
So you'd have to know how to accomplish it before you could accomplish it, which is impossible unless you're playing with a guide the entire time that has already done that.
Yes, which is why I had a guide open for the better part of the game.
Wow.
Also, there are like the different responses you give to people in conversations will give points towards their their confidant with you. And so if you respond, a way that they like, you get more points. You respond a way that they don't like, they get less points. And it doesn't always mean you're flattering them, but it might be like, you point out something that they hadn't thought about or whatever, Anyway, there are essentially right choices and wrong choices in terms of how many points you get.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're trying to min-max, right, you need to get maximum points all the time.
So you may not make decisions that you want to make.
Potentially. Although in general, it's not like there are multiple outcomes to all of these events. In general, the events are going to go one way, right? The storylines are the storylines. That's not going to change in a subsequent playthrough or anything.
Got it. Okay, but the decisions you make won't change the version or the extension of a particular confidant's story.
Except that it might mean you didn't get enough points to get to the next level, so the next time you hang out with them, you might have to have an extra hangout session in order to get to that level,
Got it, okay.
And so, all this kind of min-maxing stuff, I kind of enjoy the like min-maxing aspect of it, and that's some of what the fun is to me. And so, that's why I had the guide up so that I could get through all of this stuff in one go without having to do it. And I actually did not min-max to the maximum amount because I played for, a while at the beginning, just like sort of learning and seeing if I cared. And, it's like you sort of have to figure out, okay, do I like these people enough to want to care to see all of their story, right?
I like that the game is good enough to make you wonder if you like a character enough to
oh, dude!
Like
if you want to go to like see how deep it goes, there are so many people on the internet arguing about who are the best people in these games.
But best? Do they mean best in the like functional aspect? Usually, when you say the best character in a functional aspect, are they talking about that, or are they into it story wise, saying this is the best behaving character or the one that I like the most?
It's very frequently the one that they like the most, right? So it'd be like, who is the person that you chose to date, right? Like, the game allows you to date a certain number of the people in the game. In this particular case, it did not give you, the choices were all heterosexual relationships, but you had a choice of these various people. Like, who did you want to date? Well, like Andrew, how do you know? You can only, you can choose to try and date multiples, but like there are, repercussions for things like that. But like, what happens if you choose to date this one over this other one? Or like, how do the stories change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some changes for that. Like, and like, what if you decide you like, so but like, you don't meet all the characters right up front. They meet them over time. Well, what if you decided you like this other girl better later and you was already dating this other girl? Like now there's no like break up with them option. So it's a, so you can get there's scenes that you might see differently, or like you find the one that you like the best and you want to go on a bunch of different dates with them to all over the city, which is something you definitely can do. But if you're min-maxing, right, you don't have time to go to like 6 different places on the map with the person.
Man, relationship stuff like this drives me up a wall because I want to make sure I'm making the right decisions. Right. Yep. This is why I never finished Dragon Age, because I was always worried that I was going to pick a character that, was like going to be in my party and the story that I wanted to invest in. Did I want the witch? Did I want to have the relationship with the witch? I don't know. I'm panicking. I can't finish the game because I don't know. I'm going to make the right decision.
Well, luckily in this game, none of the decisions are wrong decisions, right? The outcome of the game is pretty much irrespective of which person you choose to date or not. Like, you don't have to date anyone if you don't want to.
Unlike that Dragon Age game. So this would probably be better for me in that aspect.
Yeah. But this game goes some places, man, by the end. Wow, it got real weird.
Weird or dark?
No, it's like the game is very anime, in that like kind of style. I don't know how to explain what I mean when I say it's anime. Hopefully people are like more familiar with like the certain styles of anime, like like Dragon Ball Z, where everyone kind of is powering up, and the hero overcomes the person after they've been defeated a bunch of times or whatever, that kind of style. And the game has a lot of tropes in it like that. So your team loses, but they're not out yet, and the hope and
kind of Naruto style stuff.
Yeah. So there is definitely a lot of that, but it goes to some weird places, and there's like for sure at least a couple twists that I did not see coming until it happened, and I was like, wait, what? And then you're like, how are you going to justify this? And then the twist comes up, and then it's like, well, haha, like you didn't see this coming. Then the character doesn't act surprised, and it's like, how can he not be surprised if the player, I am surprised, right?
Right, yeah.
And then so then it's like, why is he not surprised? Well, you hit the next button to the next prompt, and then they, series of flashbacks that show you how he knew it was coming all along, but they just didn't tell you.
Oh.
And like this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not the greatest.
I don't know how I feel about that sort of stuff, like the off-camera. In fact, you never knew, but I went to a meeting. You're like, but you're the main character. I've been playing as you this entire time. How would I have missed this information?
So it's like a case where in a lot of the cases they showed, right, there would be a scene where they start to talk about some stuff, and then they end the scene, but it turns out that conversation continued off screen, right? Like there was another 5 lines of dialogue after they went to black.
No
and you're like,
frio.
Come on, man. It's not cool. Oh, I get it. Ha. Spanish. Yeah, so, there were some weird, some twists, but definitely some stuff that I certainly didn't see coming. It was interesting. That, like, Japanese philosophy that gets into RPGs sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely some of that. And so it goes some interesting places.
That's usually when the RPG gets a little bogged down for me and I start to zone out.
Yeah, yeah. But luckily the music is all really awesome during those parts. So you could just be like, yeah, this track's really sweet, and just kind of like button through the boss dialoguing at you or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And definitely they introduced some cool, like really different mechanics to the fighting and stuff by the end. It didn't help that my heroes were like all overpowered at the time, so I didn't have to worry too much about it.
You didn't really use the things they were equipping you with because you could just sort of A to victory?
No, I couldn't quite A to victory. The combat is such that you really need to... It's more like you set spell A to prepare you so that like 2 turns later when you cast spell C, it does triple damage or something like that. Actually, that's kind of how I play Bayonetta. That's probably why I die so much.
Well, now you don't have your Bayonetta distraction, so what are you going to do now?
Actually, glad you brought that up. There was a Kickstarter that I backed quite a few years ago that finally released not that long ago. Cosmic Star Heroine. And I'm going to probably get into that in a bit.
Right on. So an episode of completion in a way, huh?
Yeah, we finally completed some things.
Well, you completed some things faster than I completed some things, but it was a big episode, man.
We're not judging.
We made good on a heretofore known Skyrim promise, right?
Yeah.
I would say I understand why that game was uber popular. There may be better things now like Witcher, but I don't think it's entirely bad, especially probably since the new version of it may run better. I don't know because I didn't play it, but I think it was okay. And it sounds like you really enjoyed your time with Persona 5.
I really did enjoy my time with it. It was fun.
Even 100 hours, man.
Yeah, over 100 hours. And there's actually like one more thing I want to do in the New Game Plus, so that will be... Maybe we'll have something to talk about there, or maybe I will decide that it's horrible and I don't want to do it, and then turn it off.
I can't state this enough. The next 2 things hitting your feed... This was a good one. Look, let's be honest. This was a good episode.
I agree.
Those next 2 episodes are going to be, I said it before, Amazeballs.
Would you say hot bangers?
You tried this before. You
wouldn't say that.
I cannot get behind that phrase. I will not do it.
You don't want to like bump it out of your stereo at high volume.
The next two?
Yeah.
I want to do more than that. And I think that the terminology you keep trying to drag into this one, I am not...
Can they hear the bass from your truck when you're on the block?
Look, people need to come up with better references than hot bangers. Please, please, please tell me what I can tell JJ by emailing us at...
podcast@weweregamers.com, which is an email address.
Yeah, that is an email address. Or you could tweet at us.
@weweregamers. Yep.
I don't think you can @Instagram us, but you can follow us on Instagram.
Also, We Were Gamers. And I believe our Facebook page is also We Were Gamers.
So give me some other options for either Amazeballs or whatever JJ's trying to come up with here for the... Look,
Hot Beats.
Hot Beats. Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
But that's
Okay.
it's kind of... I don't like hot as much because it's kind of too close to hot takes, and I think that's so overused. What are the hot takes?
But no one likes a take, though, but everyone loves a beat.
Yeah, sure. Summer jams? What's like summer...
Well, summer jams is a thing, but like
Anyway.
we are approaching summer.
It
could be.
It's aging me to say that's like the sweeps of our show, the next 2 episodes, but...
That is aging you. That's correct.
Yeah. Something better than those things, you guys. Get at us with those and listen to this one because it was awesome, and the next 2.
It was good. And those will be good, too.
They're going to be... We got the teensy preview. There's going to be a person on, and that person has a code name. We can't use their real name.
Code name.